tape for Harry's car. This should be the last tape. I believe it's tape 6. Harry would like chrome hubcaps on his rims, similar to this, but they'll be just chrome. The rim was never designed to put hubcaps on. It'll look nice if we can get it on here like this. So what I did is I made an adapter here that fits a 190 SL wheel. I ground the pins here, the back of these little pins here, ground the backs off, drove them out, just tapped this one back in a few minutes ago, but that was out. Laid a plate on here, clamped it on, drilled through these holes, and drilled through 3 of these holes, which are the same pattern as all these older Mercedes rims. And I built an adapter plate that when these 3 go through holes in the wheel, you can drill through here to locate the pins in the correct location to put the hubcap on. I decided to try it on an older rim here that's kind of scuffed up. And lo and behold, the pins do not come out on the top peak of these 300D rims. They come out on the side here. So when the pins go down in, I actually have to counter bore each hole down about 1/4 of an inch. And then when the pins go in, and you tap them into location, these aren't quite perfect yet, still working on it. Okay. Then you take your hubcap. See, they're not centered in the top crown, but by countersinking them to the outside, we can get a hubcap and placed on here. Well, this one's kind of dented up, but oh, it's going to make a liar out of me. I kind of need 2 hands here because I don't have somebody back here helping me. I'm going to set this down if I can and line this cap on the 2 pins and snap it over a 3rd pin. Oh, there we go. Now the hubcap will snap on very, 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 very tight, and it looks good. I have to remember to seat these all the same depth so that the hubcap doesn't wobble and that it sits down about the same distance. You may have to make a tool for that. I've been using this countersink. This is a not quite metric. You can see a lot of aluminum here on the end where it rubs. But this bores me down almost to a flat bottom. Then I got to take a Dremel tool in there and clean it up. I may have to have a special drill bit or something carved tomorrow that'll come through the hole similar to this, where there's no drilling being done, but that it's a flat bottoming cutter, and then bore that exactly the right distance. I'll probably have to do it on a digital readout mill, but then the cap would actually fit on here properly and be centered. If you look down the gap between the hole and the cap, it's pretty much the same. The factory ones weren't even that accurate. Might be a little bit closer on this side than this side, but again, these pins can be leaning a little bit. They're not staked in place. So if I pull the cap off chances are that the pins may come with it. Nope, none of them did. But again, I got to counterbore these down in here. You can see it's a little rough down in here. This is a wheel that had some road rash here around the edges that I was going to have to repair, bead blast and paint and what have you. But this is the aluminum rim identical to what I have on his car. Now I came through and just touched with the drill bit and removed a tiny amount of paint. But I'm going to perfect how these pins fit to make sure they don't sit in the hole and lean out or lean in, and that they're very tight. Once they're bored down in far enough, you can see that they barely come through the aluminum here. Matter of fact, they're really not coming through the aluminum. I'm going to counterbore them a little bit deeper. I'll mill out a slight amount of aluminum around this side here so we can punch this in the center, expand it out, and then I can stake the aluminum and squeeze it in. And the pin should stay put. I also can bore this hole a few thousandths shy. And when I tap these in, they'll almost press fit. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll peen what we can over, and then we'll stake the aluminum. They should stay in place. Because we have to get them in there tight, or we'll be flinging hubcaps periodically off the car. We don't want to do that. So, this is Wednesday evening. We intend on leaving here Friday with this car. And I've already got about 2 hours, 3 hours into this first wheel between making the plate and fitting these. So I think once I get this perfected and maybe a special tool built, it'll take maybe hour and a half per wheel to lay these out, mill them, and get a hubcap to fit. We'll probably have to repaint a little bit around here too, but we'll get it perfected in this wheel, and then we'll get some shots of the car finished with the hubcaps on it, the emblems on it, and we just got a front end alignment today, and everything will go back on tomorrow, which will be Thursday, and we'll be leaving here the following day if all goes well. So we'll get some shots after I spend a little more time, get these pins properly fit, and get some hubcaps on this where they fit nice and snug, and then we'll start on the 4 tires or the 4 rims that actually go on the car. Okay, got the pins in, got them reamed a little bit deeper. Pretty much had to do it by hand over the last half an hour, 45 minutes. Tomorrow I'm going to take this reamer and I'm going to machine this down to the size of the hole that's at the base of the pin. And then I have to have a company cut all of these flutes here down to 400, I think it's 67 thousandths of an inch, which is the diameter of the base of that little pin. And then we'll come back and we'll ream these out. We'll determine the correct depth. You can see that one, if you can see it, it's a little bit loose and it kind of leans. We got to determine enough depth for the hubcap to grip. It can't hit here first. About the time it snaps here, it needs to just barely touch this or just stay above it. So we'll determine the depth of the boring. The distance apart is okay. We got that down very accurately. We'll cut that reamer to this diameter. We'll cut the pin on the end of the reamer to that diameter. And as it goes, we pre-drill this hole. As it goes through into that hole, it will line it. So they'll actually have to cut this flute back approximately 1/4 inch and leave a long pin sticking out. I can bring this, I'll bring another reamer that I have and they can take their choice between which one they want to machine down, but that's what we'll have to do. We'll leave a pin sticking out of here that size and maybe a 1/4 inch longer, so it lines up through this hole before it starts cutting material, and it's got to go in it a little ways or it can snap it off. This being aluminum, if we go really slow, we can bring them in. This will be flat on the bottom. This will seat right straight flat. If I bore it deep enough so the hubcap will still fit, I still have just enough of this sticking through to peen over and to stake the aluminum, and it should hold it in place. I can't weld it, of course, because these are steel and this is an aluminum rim. It really lightened up the car, and I don't want to deviate from that, so we're going to do everything we can to stick with this. So looks good with the cap on once it fits into position. I got to have this done tomorrow, so it's going to be a quick deal. Get some shots after I get the reamer built and come back, and then we'll start actually on the rims that will be going on the car. And they'll be bored at these little spots here where you see I just nicked the paint there a touch. We're boring through there and counter boring and getting all these rims set up. We managed to figure out how to bore these holes and peen these pins in place. They built a little tool here that the bullet end of the pin goes in it. They flip the tire over. They got another tool that peens over the pin on the other side and locks them in place. We're going to put this tire on and snap the hubcap on and see what she looks like. We built this screwy looking plate. It used to be a little table. We cut the plate off, cut a circle out. We drilled out the pins on an original 190 SL wheel, and I'll pull this off in a minute, but we've got 3 alignment pins that go through the rim and 3 holes here that we actually take a drill and we drill into the aluminum a little ways to mark it. These 3 pins, all the Mercedes wheels in this era have this pattern of holes in between the main holes that the lug bolts go through. We built this that drops in any position. It'll give us 3 spots with which to drill out and put our pins. We have 1 wheel finished. We'll bore down through here with a smaller drill bit. Then Rob's got a little tool called a roto broach, just like a hole saw. We'll bore down, not through the wheel, but we'll bore down into the wheel to a predetermined depth. And then when you set the pin in place, it has to stick up enough for the hubcap to snap on properly, for us to peen the back over, but so that the hubcap doesn't hit and rub on the rim where it prevents it from going on. So we got 1 finished. We're going to finish these other 3 up here and get his hubcaps mounted. This is Thursday morning, day before we intend on leaving, so we need to get this done. We should have this done in the next few hours. And we'll get some shots after the hubcaps are all mounted on the car. This is the tool. This is the tool that after you pre-drill a small hole, put it down here. It's like a hole saw. Cuts this out. We stop at a certain depth so we don't go too far and put a hole all the way through. Then we got residue left over. Then we drill a larger hole through the center. That's the exact size of the hole that the pin, little button, the pin is going to need to go through the rim. So we take this aluminum out of here, and naturally it's giving me a hard time. We break that out of there, and if the holes are slightly off, this is a metric pin, and we're using US equipment, so the hole sizes are slightly off. So then we have to take another little Dremel tool in here, clean these up. We use one of these, clean that up slightly, and another ceramic or a stone just to polish that out so that the pin will drop down in. And we'll get this cleaned up, and we'll get 3 more pins in here, and then we'll get this on the car as well. Alright, got all our wheels modified. It's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so it was a slow all-day event, but we got it done. Emblems are on. I have to admit, Steve, you were right, I do like these hubcaps better.
Yeah, I like them all silver like that.
Harry likes it too, and that's the main thing. It's his car. I don't know, I think I got all of this already, but plug in from back here. Everything's wired correctly inside, and I have charged the car. I only put like 35 miles on it and charged it back up using that plug, so it does work. This is Thursday afternoon. We intend to leave tomorrow. We're going to kind of sponge bath the car. Steve, how long has it been since you waxed it? Yeah, we've cleaned up stuff off it, so probably should wax it again, maybe. We'll see how the surface is. We've done some touch-up where we had a scratch. Maybe we'll let the paint, that area we touched up, dry a little longer before we wax it. Maybe we'll wax it when we get out there. We're going to keep the display unit for now until we determine where Harry wants it. We're going to keep the display unit in the glove box. This is the wire to plug it in. And we'll keep it in there. I'm not pleased with how the carpet can move around too easy. So I'm going to get some jute or something today to stitch to the carpet or glue to the back of it. Stiffen up that carpet a little bit. But there we are. We're going to get his other extension cord in here. Most of the wiring and stuff is all tied up and kind of out of the way. Fans are all operational. Leather jacket is in there because it's been colder than snot in the evenings. When I'm driving this in the evenings, it just about freezes me to death. So there we are. The hood's not closed all the way. We'll get an outside shot here of that. Other than the trip out there, this pretty much ends the tape for here. We'll get some shots if we drive it at all on the travels out to California. What's the date today? 22nd?
22nd.
22nd of April. We need to be in Malibu on the 28th. Yes, I like popcorn. Best kettle corn in the country. Both extension cords are in. Some goodies in the glove box. That's the onboard computer. We'll be closing that up. Got charged overnight. We're looking for the cover to put this cover on here. And very shortly, we'll be loading the car in the trailer. I have one somewhere, don't I? Maybe in the truck?
No. This is the one that used to be in there.
I had a new one that I just bought.
This was it. No, it ain't. This ain't it. That little tiny black turd we're using on the dashboard.
I know it looks a little jerry-rigged, but quite a sturdy setup. These two vehicles are going to California, north of LA. Two 190 SLs. They're nicely strapped in. And Harry's car will go on the back here and be tied in. So we'll be loading that shortly. We're going to put that cover on, check a few things inside, and then that car will be brought in here. We have a hard top to put in. The guys are going to see where they can fit that hard top. We've delivered the car. We're outside Malibu. We're about 30 miles or so from Malibu. We're at the auto club. He's here to get insurance. Just happened to look up and find a plug on the wall. We're just testing this car, and it's nice to be able to plug in pretty much anywhere. Real happy to have a dual voltage charger that'll take 110 or 220. As obviously you can see here, we can find 110 just about anywhere. We do not have a low battery, but we're just kind of perking it up. You can see that the onboard display says that we're charging 6.2 amps. We already have 333.7.8. State of charge is 80%. Batteries are 73 low temperature, 78 high temperature. We are 4/100ths of a volt difference between the low battery and the high battery. That is really, really good. So, I don't know how long Harry will be here yet. We've only been plugged in for about 8 minutes. But I thought as long as I'm sitting here, we would try and get a little more juice into here because we got some stops to make on the way back. So hopefully we don't get in too much trouble because, well, worst they can do is have me unplug it. So we'll be heading on our way back to Malibu. We're in Santa Monica, other end of Santa Monica, and we will be heading back. We're going to be checking out some electrical charging stations on the way back. We're in Harry's garage in Malibu. Brakes are not working quite satisfactorily, so I pulled the booster out. We hooked up a vacuum pump, and the vacuum pump showed that I was getting 25 inches of vacuum on the mercury side here, but that this switch on the canister stops me at 15.5 to 16 pounds. Took the booster into Bell Gardens, to a place that rebuilds boosters for us, actually. Happens to be within driving distance, so we took it in there, and they found a bad seal and a stuck valve, and completely went through it and rebuilt it. They've got it set up for actuating with only 20 pounds of pressure on the pedal and putting out 1200 psi to the wheel cylinders. So very good, should be very powerful. We're going to run it with this standard switch, giving me 15.5 to 16 pounds of vacuum. And if we still don't seem that that's satisfactory, we're going to take the switch and bypass the switch, let the vacuum pump run full, see how it works with that. And if it works better in the 20 to 22, 25 range, we're going to get another vacuum switch that allows the boost vacuum to go higher. I did try to find one, spent most of the day yesterday, and they don't, so far I haven't found anybody makes one more powerful. But the booster will come back today. We'll get it back in, and we'll get some shots as to how that's working. Booster came back, reattached, rewired all the switches, repiped all the vacuum lines, bled the brakes, and took it outside for a test. And those black skid marks on the driveway are caused by me stopping quickly. Never had a better booster on a 190 SL. The company here that we use tweaked it extra special for me. Redid something in the valving in here. This booster is normally designed to operate around 16 inches of vacuum pressure and put out about 900 psi to the brakes. After they tweaked it and bench tested it at 15 to 16 pounds, we got 1,200 pounds of pressure. Harry drove the car, very, very happy. Everything's working fine. We hit a seagull yesterday, right smack in the front here, checking for inspection for damage. I see just some smudges, but whacked the seagull pretty darn hard. It wanted food in the roadway more than it wanted life, I guess. Anyway, didn't do any bad damage to the car. Right now I'm strengthening the blower fans. There's a series of blower fans here and underneath alongside the motor. No way of properly putting them in except through these cable ties. They're very light, so I'm not overly worried, but I'm strengthening them with cable ties. I want to put a metal bracket there. Pat, you want to grab that envelope that has those emblems in it? Pull them out. We charged it last night with 110 to. He's having trouble with his 220 breakers here tripping because other things down below use 220 and it's too much power. This emblem is going to mysteriously appear here in the steering wheel in a little while. Gee, and we're not even sure where the emblem came from. So we're going to put that in the steering wheel so it doesn't say, I think, Norinco, Italy or whatever on the emblem. But we're going to, we have a guy going to film this car here in the next hour or two. So we're going to sponge it down, get some dust off it, reinforce the fans underneath, and he's going to do some shots. And like I said, Harry's very pleased with the way it stops now, and I've never driven a 190 that stops this good. Very, very aggressive brakes now. And the car's quite stable when you drive it, so everything's coming along real well. We'll get some shots possibly as we drive it for a test drive. This is what the customer is used to driving. His little fancy sports car.
He's getting ready to leave
and now he's leaving in his other fancy sports car. Except the Mini. You want me to pull that carpet for you?
Yes, I sure do.
All right, I'll pull it right out of there. Hang on.
My wife's car.
The book fell down there. Did I put it in the door pocket?
Yeah.
All right, you remember it's already set for driving. I already flipped the switches.
Get
to get used to it.
Underneath that spring.
Let the clutch all the way up. Remember? Don't ride the clutch. See ya. He's gone.